Hello everyone, my name is Oktay Auge, and welcome to my presentation of the introduction of consonants in English language. Well, in this presentation, obviously I'm going to talk about consonants in the English language, but specifically I'm going to talk about the pronunciation of the English consonants. I'm going to talk about some consonant clusters, consonant features, and at the very end of it, we're going to talk a little bit of silent letters in English language. So let's start. So as you can remember from the previous weeks, we had what is known as an IPA chart, right? In that IPA chart, we have seen vowels and we have seen the vowel diagram. So in that same chart, in that same IPA chart, we also have what is known as a consonant chart. Well, as you can see from the example here, you can see a bunch of symbols in this chart. But don't get scared. This specific example defines each and every single consonant in like each and every language in the world. So uh, thank God, I guess, uh, English has uh, lots and lots of lower amounts of consonants. So as you can see, there's like a lot more less than the whole chart. So we have things like plosive, nasal, fricative, approximant, and lateral approximant consonants. So how do we pronounce those things? Like, do we pronounce them as like P, as you can see, P, B, T, D, K, and G? Or like, I mean, what even is that question mark thing, right? So how do we pronounce that? Well, to basically simplify this, what happens is that you pronounce these consonants with the flow of your air through your mouth and out from your body. So how does that happen is that there is a thing in your throat that is called a larynx. And that larynx has something that is called a vocal cord. So that vocal cord can open up or close. As you can see from the examples on the left and example on the right. So what happens is that if your vocal cord is open and the air comes from your lungs and it pushes through the vocal cord without any hesitation, right? So by having an open vocal cord, you can create voiceless sounds like sound. And as you can see from the right picture, the picture on the right, if your vocal cords, sorry, are closed, the air tries to get through that vocal cord, but the vocal cord is closed, right? So when the air gets past this vocal cord, it vibrates and it creates a voiced sound, like z, like the Z sound. Z. If you try this at home, you can understand. I mean, you can feel the vibrations in your throat. But of course, there are other elements in like creating the consonant voices, like the voices depend on the placement of your tongue, like on your teeth and on your lip, and it also depends on the larynx. So these like alveolar ridge, hard palate, velum, and uvula, I mean, they are some technical terms. I don't really think we should learn them. I'm like, we should specifically know their names, but they are all obviously like beneficial to us when, for example, whenever we try to produce a specific sound that we weren't able to make before. So they are obviously essential, but I don't really think they are that essential for us to learn because, I mean, we're trying to pronounce. I mean, this really seems a bit more academic to me. So lips, teeth, and placement of your tongue, and the openness and closeness of your vocal cords depend, like create your pronunciations of those consonants. So how do you pronounce those? So starting with the plosive, what happens in your mouth is that your mouth, the air flows through your mouth and your mouth gets closed and it suddenly opens up like p, as you can see from here, p, like it closes and it opens in an instant. So you would say p as in pie or b as in buy. Before we begin with all of those, I should remind you that in this chart, every every symbol that is on the left side are voiceless, and every symbol on the right side are voiced. So bear that in mind. So how do we pronounce them as that? We pronounce them as p as in pie and b as in buy. So if we were to continue, we would say t as in tie or d as in die, or we would say k as in kite or g as in guy. As you can see, there is an other thing on the glossal column. It's represented by a question mark. Um, what that is that if you have, how should I say, if you have heard some British people speak about some bottles of water, you know, when they say bottle of water, they say it like bottle of water, like water. So glottal takes part in the voa part. So when you say vo, you completely stop and you continue with r. So that's glottal. It's not uh, it's not originated from the English language. Other languages have this, but oa, you know, like complete stop and continuation. So that's glottal and that's plosive. So if we were to continue with the nasal sounds, obviously from the name you can understand the voice flows through your nose and your mouth stays shut. So we can pronounce them as as in my, or as in night, or as in ring. So yeah, they are a bit more or less than others. So if we were to look at the fricative ones, we can, how should I say, we can describe them as like the whisper sounds, because when you try to pronounce them, your mouth doesn't really close or doesn't really open that much. So it's kind of in between. So when you try to pronounce them, you kind of sound like you're whispering. Like for example, you say f as in far, as in fly, sorry, or v as in viva or viva. You say th as in thigh, or you say d as in die. So the last, the thigh and die parts are, for some people, are very hard to replicate, should I say, for the like non-native speakers of the English language. Like for example, our language, the Turkish language, doesn't have this sound, so we replace it by t or d. Like for example, if you if someone who is Turkish and doesn't really speak that much correctly the English language, you know, they wouldn't read it as thigh. They would read it as tie or die, probably. So if we were to continue, we would say s as in sigh, and we would say z as in zoo, and we would say sh as in shy, and we would say j as in measure. As you can see, highlighted with the yellow background, we also have another voice represented with the H symbol. It's h as in high, h, high. So, and if we were to look at the approximants, I mean, you can kind of understand it, sort of from the names, because it's almost approximately as like a vowel. So what that means is that the airflow doesn't really get blockaded by anything, not by the feet or the lips or the tongue. It just sort of glides through, like through your mouth. So they're almost like a vowel, but they're not. For example, the y. For example, when you say the e vowel, and when you say e, and you while you are saying e, when you open your mouth, it transforms into the y sound, as in yes, as you can see from the example here, from here. Like when you say e and you open your mouth, e, that e sort of transforms into a y sound, as in a yes or yod. So if you were to look how they are pronounced, we would say le as in lie, ye as in yes or yod. You say v as in y, or v as in y, or r as in rye. So as I said, yod or yes sound, it has a important role in the differentiation between the British and the American accents, because I'm not quite sure like at which time in the history that this yacht dropping event happened, but I guess it's probably happened in the 17th century, because anything like that has changed in the English language has happened in the 17th century, along with the Great Vowel Shift. So it's not a bad guess to say yacht dropping probably happened around the 17th century, like 16th, 17th, or 18th century, around that time. So what this means that after a while, the American English language has just dropped the yod sound, as in yes or yod. So the Americans, as you can see from this example from here, they will read these words as like this: assume, knew, Tuesday, YouTube, and Duke. But the British didn't actually drop that yod sound, so they would read it as like this, and this. Sorry. Assume, knew, Tuesday, YouTube, or Duke. As you can see, the G, the Y sound, really signifies the word quite literally. I mean, you can definitely hear the differentiation between the British and American accents just from this, like the yacht dropping. It almost like it almost how should I say, is similar to rhoticity that we learned from like previous weeks. As we also have learned from the previous weeks, we have learned diphthongs, right? So consonants also have this same, like kind of similar thing. They call it affricates. So what they are is that they take one consonant and they sort of glide to another consonant and they make a completely new sound. So as you can see from the example from here, uh, they start with t and they go to sh, and t and sh collides together and they make the ch sound, ch, as in church, ch, church. And another example would be d and j, so collide them together, j, they make the church, j sound, as in church. I mean, like they are basically diphthongs in the vowel diagram, but they're just called different, and they're in the consonant chart now. And obviously, if you have seen, if you've completed the course and you have seen this example, it's a hilarious example, and this example really uh, shows how much pronunciation of like consonants, vowels, or any sort of pronunciation can affect your intelligibility, credibility, or even your identity, right? So what happens in this example is that this guy right here is a Coast Guard. He's German. He's a German Coast Guard. So Germans, if you have ever seen them, heard them talk English, they can't really produce the th sound, the th sound as in thigh, like us, like the Turkish. So they replace it, they replace the th sound with an s. So what happens here is that someone calls this German Coast Guard and they say that they are sinking. Their ship is like getting sunk into the sea. So, but the Coast Guard misrepresent this as like the th sound, and he thought that they have said they are thinking. So he asked, "What are you thinking about?" And it's quite hilarious. It's quite funny, and features like this, like pronunciation features like this, really adds up to your identity, and it's and things like this are what makes you unique. So, but they also, as you can see from the example, can affect your intelligibility. And uh, if you work in some places like air traffic control or coast guard, I mean, uh, the way you speak is very detrimental to the people that you are trying to communicate, right? So if you are uh, going to work in those jobs in the future, maybe, or if you are working now in those jobs, you might want to try to learn the correct ways of pronunciation, correct way of pronunciation of these, like consonants, vowels, or anything, because what you say might be detrimental and it can save bunch and bunch of lives, or it can endanger bunch and bunch of lives. So if you were to look at the consonant clusters, as you can see from the left side, the STs, the SKs, or the SP sounds, I mean, like they're like a consonant. Or I should start with what's a cluster, right? A cluster is something that a group of something together, some things together. So the ST, SK, and SP consonants have came together and they created a consonant cluster. So for some people, these consonant clusters are hard to pronounce. So in order to overcome this hardship, some people decide to add an extra vowel to make it easier for them to say these words, or they completely delete some of the consonants from the word. As you can see from the example on the right, uh, the word is Spain, but some people just can't produce that SP sound. They can't say Spain. They can't say the SP. So what they do is that they add an extra vowel, the E vowel, or just before the S or right after the S. It doesn't really matter actually. So they would say Spain or Spain in order in sorry in terms of saying like Spain, they would say Spain or Spain, right? Or, as I said before, they would just completely delete some of the consonants. Like when they are trying to say vest, they would just say vest. They don't say the T sound. They don't see the T consonant. Or, for example, when I say dogs, they just delete the S consonant and they just say dog. I mean, because why this happens, why these hardships happen, is that because it may be because, sorry, maybe they don't know the context of what you're talking about. Maybe they're just like picking up some words that you're trying to, what you're saying, or they might not know the English language very well. They might not be native, so they might have a hard time understanding these clusters when you say them fastly, right? So you can. So I'm going to read this aloud. Read these examples aloud, and you can try to hear the difference between, like, for example, Kate and skate. But I'm going to read them fast, so try to catch the differences between the words, okay? So, Kate, skate, lip, slip, mug, smug, nail, snail, port, sport, tone, stone, rap, crap, scrap, lay, play, splay, ray, pray, spray, rain, train, strain. So, as you can see, for someone who is not a native speaker, I mean, differentiating these words, these pronunciations can really, really be hard. So, in order to uh, overcome these hardships, the consonants, have some features. So, for example, one of these feature is that what we call aspiration, right? So, what this aspiration is that we can define it as an extra breath that we use. Like, for example, people might have a hard time differentiating the words pin and bin, right? So, for example, you are saying the word pin and bin in the same like length, like pin bin, pin bin, pin bin. Like, for some people who are not native or who doesn't know the English language very well, they might have a hard time differentiating those two words, pin and bin, right? So in order to highlight those words, the words that have the consonants like P, T, and K, like P, T, and K, they use the aspiration feature and add an extra breath like pin, pin, bin, pin, bin, pin, bin. You can see that it almost blows up. It blows up more and more air through your mouth. It almost highlights the word that you're trying to say. Another thing that helps people differentiate these clusters are the clear and the dark owls. So what they are is that, as you can see from the example on the left, the clear L makes a sound like light and late, left. It makes a left sound, right? And as you can see from the right, the full and bold sounds make a l sound, a l sound. It's a bit bolder. So what they represent is that when you pronounce a word that has a clear L, your tongue goes just right behind your upper teeth, and it doesn't touch your upper teeth, but it kind of touches like just right next to it. But and you make the l light sound, l sound. But in the dark one, you say l. Your tongue goes a little bit back, a little more behind. And as you can see from the example, the tips of the tongues doesn't really touch the same place, right? So people have also have a hard time differentiating this thing as well. So what they do to overcome this thing is that they don't pronounce the dark L's. They pronounce each and every single L sound, L consonant, as a clear L sound. As you can see from this example, I mean, if you complete the course, you've seen this, of course. So Angela Merkel talks about something, I don't really know. uh, she addresses the parliament about something. In her speech, sorry, she says the word told. As you can see, the way I say told, you can understand the L sound is a dark L, but she pronounces it as told. Told. She uh, takes the dark L and she makes it into an clear L. So people use these features in order to overcome these hardships. So we've come to the greatest problem, I guess, for me, uh, the silent letters. So for some people, for many people, or should I say, for many people, these silent letters are the sole reason why they don't want to learn the English language, because it's full of exceptions and exceptions, right? So, for example, the word enough, the word enough. What happens to that GH sound at the end? It becomes silent, or thorough, or like thorough, or through. What happens to those TH and GH sounds? They are just gone. So why does that happen is a bit historical. So why? So let me explain it. Okay, as you can see, as you have learned, should I say, as you have learned throughout these courses, a thing called the Great Vowel Shift has happened in the 17th century. So what they did in that Great Vowel Shift is that they took some words, they changed their pronunciation, but what they forgot to do was change their writing as well. So what happened was that they took, for example, blood, the word blood. It was pronounced blood before, or blood before, and now it's pronounced blood. They're still written the same. Before the 17th century, it was still written like blood. After the 17th century, after the Great Vowel Shift, it's still written as blood. So what happens is that there are like bunch and bunch of more words like this that has changed throughout the years. The pronunciation changed, but the writing, the letters didn't change. So that's why there's a bunch and bunch of silent letters in the English language. Another reason is that English language borrows words from other languages like German or Scandinavian languages, or uh, French Romance languages, but especially the French one is more problematic, should I say. So what happens there is that the words, if you've studied French, you would know that the French people don't really pronounce their H sounds, and don't really pronounce the end of their sentences or end of their words. So when the English borrowed words from the French language, it really just messed up the whole pronunciation and writing system. And it just created a bunch of silent letters in words. Like, for example, a French French borrowed word like hour. We don't say the H, we don't pronounce the H sound there. We say hour. Or the Greek, a Greek borrowed word, psychology, like it is written at PSY. We don't really read the P. We just say psi. It becomes silent. If you were to give examples to that, I mean, this first example is has before. I mean, I didn't know how to pronounce this correctly before, and I always pronounce this word in like same way, because I thought, this word would be pronounced like this. So what I want you to do is that try to pronounce them before me. I'm going to pronounce them correctly. So okay, let's start, right? Uh, so I pronounced this word for quite some long time as Greenwich. And if you're not from Britain, or if you're like a non-native speaker, or if you're from America, you would also said Greenwich too, I guess. But it actually pronounced as Greenwich. Like a vowel, the E vowel is dropped, and W is not said. It's like Greenwich for some reason. And the infamous thorough sound, the GH is gone, or tough, again, the GH is gone. Or another British example we have here is that If you're not from Britain, or you are not native, if you are not a native speaker, or you're from like America again, you would have pronounced this word as Edinburgh, right? Even when you say Edinburgh, the H sound is still silent, but the correct way of pronouncing this word is Edinburgh. Edinburgh. I mean, the URGH sound is completely gone and it is replaced by something else. I mean, four letters are just becomes a silent letter. Or, sorry, or we can say like column. We don't really say the N. We don't pronounce the N. Or we say doubt. We don't pronounce the B. Or we say damn. We don't pronounce the N's, right? I mean, these are the things that really keeps some people away from the English language. So thank you for listening. My long presentation. I mean, I guess it took a real long time. So thank you for listening, and I hope I can see you in the next one. So see you.